Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to talk about the Child's Play franchise because here I have a complete seven movie collection. Yeah, I recently picked this up for not a bad price considering like all seven movies. And I guess you could say it's the definitive collection. Obviously, it's not including the, I believe, 29 remake, which is fine because like this is all like in the the same timeline, same continuity, which I love. I love getting like a whole collection together. It's cool to know that you don't have to look elsewhere for titles in the timeline, right? And Chucky is a horror icon for me. Slasher to be loved and feared just as much as Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers. Not as the direction of this franchise did go like in the 90s and the 2000s. It went away from being like more like scary and more tapping into the fact that it's like a killer doll that can talk and there's a lot of profanity and cursing. But that's what I love about Chucky. He's one of my favorites. What Don Mancini, the man behind the creation, like the franchise, like to think of this character, this cursing doll, that a criminal, a despicable criminal, because we do get backstory on Charles. Oh, it's escaped me now. Anyway, yeah, the criminal who gets trapped, does some voodoo magic, gets trapped inside a doll, like a children's play toy, um, and just terrorizes the streets as a doll. Gets handed to children, of course, as a toy, as a doll for them to play with, and he turns out that he's just out for blood. He just doesn't want hugs and yeah, he's out for pure murder and mayhem, isn't he? But yeah, I love Chucky. Yeah, this box set is really cool. Really, I like the colors. I like the design. Chucky looks obviously this is like the newer model of Chucky. Like it's not like the original Chucky, the doll there. I think that's more so like the modern era Chucky. Um, you open it here, it's like a big sort of chunky case to house all seven films. It's not like obnoxiously big, um, but I will say one thing. I hate the design of, see, look, they're already falling out. Like the design of it, it's like I'm not sure if you call them. I'm not sure what you call this, to be honest. But like you get them all like that, where they all come on like a thing. But it's just like I don't know whether it's like something's wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong. There's nothing that snaps in there or anything. It's just they come on this sort of like, I don't know. But look, they're all just falling out, and it's not a really great design. At least like they're all like, I keep them safe. I'm not throwing about the case, so I know they're safe. But still, just for handling wise, to look at really nice, but handling, yeah, not a fan, not a fan at all. But it's cool that you get a lot of like, I guess, illustration, and it explains like all the like any physical media release, it would explain like all the you probably won't see it there, but like all the run times and whatnot. And yeah, no, I was pretty happy to pick this up. So I done a little marathon of all seven films. Um, really looking forward to it and really enjoyed it. So you've got Child's Play 1 and 2, and I think those two are arguably the strongest films in the franchise in terms of like filmmaking, suspense, what they were trying to achieve. It was more horrific, it was more scary, it was more slasher orientated, being that they were the films in the 80s. Where the slasher boom was at an all-time high, right? So yeah, number 1 and 2 are like arguably, until you get into the more newer ones where they try to go really scary. They're like the scary ones, and they really tap into the fact that like it's a doll and it's unsuspecting, and nobody believed like Andy Barclay is the central protagonist. He's a wee boy in the first one, slightly older in the second one, and I always it's those situations where you're screaming at the TV, and you're like, why does nobody believe Andy? And it would be such a frustrating situation to be in, where you know the truth, and you're not delusional, you're not going through any uh it's really something that's happening, and only Andy Barclay and a select few others would know. And I forget the name of the female protagonist from the second one. She joined Andy in the battle against Chucky, and she's a Kyle, that's her name. She's a really great protagonist as well. They really work well in number 2 together. It's hard to say. What people do say, they prefer Chucky 2, Child's Play 2, sorry, to the original. I don't know. I see. I don't know if I could decide. I think like if you right now, I'd say Child's Play the original. Just for a filmmaking perspective. But then with number 2, you've got Kyle and you've got Andy working together. There's some cool there was a cool car chase scene with Kyle and Chucky, and then you get like the body horror. Like some of the body horror in this franchise, really good. Really great stuff, like really grotesque, horrible to look at stuff that mainly happens to Chucky, to be honest. Although Chucky does use utensils and miscellaneous items around the house and whatnot to kill his victims, the way Chucky goes out in like almost all of them, like real great. I say body horror, it's more doll horror, right? Yeah, he goes out in some gruesome ways, particularly number 2. He goes out dirty in number 2. Child's Play 3, that's more so in the 90s now, isn't it? Yeah, Child's Play 3, I think the consensus is it's like not loved by many people. More one of the weaker entries in the franchise, based on like my minimal sort of like word on the street. I mean, Child's Play 3, I really enjoyed it. Not my favorite. Actually lower in my rankings. But no, I did enjoy it. I think it was held back by its like setting. It was set in like this army camp barracks, and went to a few different places, but it just felt off that it was based in the army barracks and it wanted to do certain other things. Felt like the filmmakers were restricted already by being where they were. But there were some cool aspects to being in the army barracks, Chucky was sort of like sidelined a little bit for like Andy's, like an older version of Andy with a different actor. I believe, I could be wrong there. His little like character development with other characters. Like a growing up. There's like bullying angles, there's friendship angles. Child's Play 3 was okay. And then so you could say 1 to 2 are similar in that they're slashes, they're more horror. Then Child's Play 3 leans, I don't know really, yeah, it's slasher too. There was a really cool kid, I think his name was Reggie in number 3, he's awesome. Yes, and in Child's Play 3, I'm not really, leans, still in the slasher territory, leans away from the horror. Yeah, so that it devolves there. But then we get to the 4th and 5th entry. And there was a break, I think, between the first 3 and then number 4. There was like I could be wrong, there was a few years gap. But then we get Bride of Chucky. Now Bride of Chucky was a complete like switch up from the first 3. This is more, I don't know what Don Mancini's angle was, the creator, whether he spoke to like the studio, like what input there was into changing up like the tone of the franchise. But the tone was now for Bride of Chucky, it was now more so like comedy and tapping into like the profanity and what Chucky was saying and how he, like the fact that it was a killer doll that runs around swearing and was just so full of anger at the world, and at not being able to finally like kill Andy Barclay. He's on to bigger and brighter and bloodier things, right? But yeah, Bride of Chucky, that's like a fan favorite. For a lot of people, that's their favorite film. Um, Growing up, my favorite was always the fifth one, Seed of Chucky. It went even more into the extreme. But Bride of Chucky, watching it on a rewatch now, it's excellent, fantastic. I mean, I will like negatively say, like criticism wise, that I think like the story wise, it's like there's like two. It's mainly like this couple that are like parallel, like their little character arc is parallel to what the Bride of Chucky, Tiffany and Chucky is doing, but they're like two normal people, but it's as if like they're getting blamed for things like crimes and whatnot that the dolls are committing. And I don't know, like the story wise was weaker than what we actually got in terms of like comedy, kills, um, just the outrageousness of having like Tiffany now in a franchise. And I tell you what, Tiffany stole the whole I don't want to go so far as to say stole the whole franchise because Chucky's the man and that's why I love this franchise. But Tiffany Shaw for sure stole Bride of Chucky. Definitely, and she's so entertaining. And the actress, Jennifer Tilly, she's just she's iconic, man. I love to have her around. I love to see her in things. Love her in the new Chucky TV series. Always great seeing her. I'm glad she's like since she was a part of Bride of Chucky and she's she's been ever present in the franchise, which I'm glad to see. So yeah, Bride of Chucky really good. Switch up from the franchise. Then we go to Seed of Chucky. Like I said, it was my favorite. Is it my favorite to this day? I would say like my favorite would be perhaps the original, and then we'll go into the comedy side. I like to have a bit of both, and it's good that you can separate that also or have them together. But yeah, Seed of Chucky introduces their child, so it just gets really outrageous that like these dolls are having children and they can sort of like swap bodies. There's a lot of voodoo magic going on. And yeah, Seed of Chucky is outrageous. Like you'd have to be a fan of like the silliness and the outrageousness mixed in with horror to really like Seed of Chucky. If you don't like that, you're really going to be turned off of Seed of Chucky, but that is just my alley, I'm all for that. Mixing like, kills and death and like the dark and the macabre and all of that stuff with this just outrageous, just such a fun time. Seed of Chucky is a fun time. Would I say it has a better story than Bride of Chucky? Again, like the storyline for 4 and 5, they're sort of like underdeveloped due to the characters of the dolls just being such a presence, and then you get Jennifer Tilly, So yeah, but no, those two very much more so comedic, but really enjoyable. They're highs on my franchise ranking, Then the series takes a break, quite a long break, I believe. It goes from like Seed of Chucky was I think 2004, and then Curse of Chucky, which is the sixth one, is I believe 2013. It's, nearly a 10-year gap. And Curse of Chucky was like for a new generation, and I really didn't like it. Curse of Chucky, no, it's really not for me. I mean, they tried to go for like a much darker, like, so you think Child's Play, the original, was like, it's the 80s, it's slasher, it's horror, it's whoa, it's new. And then you get Curse of Chucky where it's trying to be new again for a new audience, and it just doesn't work because it's like, perhaps it did work for someone that's never seen a Chucky movie before, because that would be their first introduction to this doll that's, killing, like children and family members that it's been like sort of put in amongst, as a doll, as a children's doll. But the whole thing was like super dark. It was just set in this one house, I'm pretty sure. Just so boring. But it did introduce, the one shining light is that it introduced, now I forget her name, but she's like, she's a new Kira, I want to say, or Kai. Sorry, I do forget her name, but she's like a new character in this. Like she's the main protagonist. She's wheelchair bound, but she's so strong and she's like capable and like she just gets. She goes through it. She's up against Chucky, and Chucky is a sadistic killer. But yeah, that's the only saving grace in Curse of Chucky. Then we go on to, I think it's 2017, and it's the Cult of Chucky, the last in the this timeline, apart from obviously the new TV series, of course, which I'd love to get hold of when it's released. Yeah, Cult of Chucky, much better. It's a return to, like, you know, this sort of like just the entertainment value of having Chucky around. You know, if you're gonna have Chucky in a film, use him. You use all of his what he brings to the table in a film. You know, in a horror film. So the main protagonist, I'm so sorry I forget her name, but she takes the lead again in this film, and she's more like, it's more all about her, because she'd been through so much in The Curse of Chucky, and now in The Cult of Chucky. She's in this like mental asylum. Again, a bit like Andy Barclay, nobody believes her story because, of course, it is ridiculous in the real world. You know, a killer doll. So she's in this mental asylum, and you know, as the title suggests, you know, Cult of Chucky. That's a great title, and it suggests that, like, a cult. There's worshippers of Chucky, and in this case, there's multiple Chuckies. So, I think another thing that Don Mancini is he's very aware, self-aware of what he created and what Chucky means to the fans and himself and to the actors that keep on continuing to join his films. You know, and anyone that wants to be a part of him. He's striving to do new things with the franchise, right? You know, in so many of them, it's once we get to the final battle between Chucky and whoever the good guys are, you know, they have to kill one doll, or himself and you know, Tiffany. So and once you know that, you know, they destroy Chucky, he's dead, he returns. So in Cult of Chucky, in 2017, he decided to make it so there's multiple Chuckies. There's a new angle. There's a new enemy as such. You know, you have to invent new ways to get rid of Chucky instead of just going one on one with him. You know, you see, there's multiple Chuckies up against a wheelchair bound protagonist, and it's really fun, really good. I can't wait to watch Cult of Chucky again. Yeah, no, it's just it's a return to sort of like the fun, sort of like hideous aspect of what Chucky is capable of. You know, there's some really cool scenes with glass. I'm sure we've seen glass being used a few times in this franchise, and always uses it in a cool way. The filmmakers, that is. Yeah, so that is the Chucky 7 movie collection. Really happy to have the box set. Really enjoyed my marathon of it. It's something that I'll always sort of dip in and out of, and now I've refreshed myself in the franchise, I can choose which ones to go back to more so often, and which ones I'll go to when I want to reevaluate my opinion of that film. Um, yeah, Chucky is an amazing creation, and he's up there with my favorite sort of fictional characters for sure. You know, in the horror sphere. Um, yeah, so I can't wait to have. I've seen the TV series, of course, which is another return to form. I'm glad that it's more on the side that I prefer, rather than, you know, being on one of the films that I wasn't too keen on. Um, yeah, so once I get the Chucky TV series on physical media, I'm sure I'll give it a video for you guys. Yeah, thank you. What do you think of Chucky? Where does he rank on your horror icons, and what's your favourite film? Thank you very much.